All right, welcome to the Miami Tech Pod. We got a great episode in store for you. But before we get into it, I want to tell you a little bit about our sponsor. You know, when you're running a startup and you're in the tech industry, what's more important than recruiting and finding great talent? So I'm really excited to tell you about Ramrack Recruiting, which specializes in working with startups and small, fast-growing companies. They have a genuine, people-oriented approach with honesty and trust. They're Miami-based. They operate with a real, friendly, approachable culture, and they already are having a great impact for their clients, candidates, and are partnered with recruiting firms for executives, tech, product, HR, operations, sales, marketing positions, you name it. Reach out at ramrack.com, ramrak.com. They want to hear from you and see what value they can add.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 14 of the Miami Tech Pod. I'm Cesar Fernandez, and I'm joined as always by Brian Breslin. Wow, Brian Breslin. That was hard to get out this week. Will Weinrob and Maria Durchi. How's everyone doing this week, Brian? Since I butchered your name on the intro here, why don't you go first?
So this was a really interesting week. We hosted Marcelo Claude over at at the Launchpad yesterday, and he and the rest of the SoftBank team got to learn about some of the interesting stuff with data science and machine learning and some of the entrepreneurial activities going on. So that was a neat experience. And he had some dope shoes on too. Will would have approved.
What was he rocking? Was it Jordan 1s? What was it?
It was Jordan 1s, the
classic,
the Carolina blue ones.
Class. I got those on order. Those are good.
What do a pair of Jordan 1s set one back?
Depends on the colorway. Like right now, like I'm rocking, these are called the shadows, right? The black and grays. So these you can get, I think it's like maybe like $200 or $300 in between. You can get like one that's not as desirable, like a colorway for like, they retail for like $120. But then depending on the colorway, they sell out. So then you got to buy them on the resale market on like a StockX or GOAT. Cool. I mean, they have crazy ones like there's one that's like black and orange that goes for, they call that the shattered backboards, that goes for $1,500. They have another one that's called the Chicago's that goes for around the same price. Then there's like the Dior ones that also I saw Marcelo rocking. Those are like a few thousand. I don't know how much they are, but yeah.
I think it's over 10.
They can get up there.
This week on the Miami Tech and Sneaker Pod,
that's right.
We have a lot of exciting news to talk about.
Hey, listen, there's a lot of great sneaker tech out there. We could have some folks on the show. There's a few apps here based in Miami that's doing, sneaker tech. So
there was a kid a few years back who was a straight hustler who was here in Miami, and he was doing over $1 million a year when he was 16, reselling sneakers to like DJ Khaled.
Oh,
and
that
Rick
was
Ross.
yeah. I mean, he was on. I forget his name, but I think his
Alex
name is
or something.
Ben. Yeah. He's famous now. He's got his own whole business operation. It's a mogul.
We should have him on the pod one day.
Yes, he'd be a great guest.
Let's do it. Awesome. Well, we have a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. Mayor Francis Suarez is joining us on the pod. We chatted earlier in this week with Mayor Suarez. It was a really awesome conversation. We'll get to that in a bit. But Maria, we have some exciting news. Speaking of SoftBank, that we learned this week, right?
Yes, a few different things, and I think there's still some more news to come out of SoftBank, which isn't public yet. But top is they recruited rock star Ana Paula Gonzalez. See, we're all screwing up names today.
All right.
Ana
the
Paula.
Show goes on.
It's Friday. You could tell we're all exhausted. So Ana Paula, formerly of 500 Startups, joined to lead their SoftBank Miami initiative. And so that's exciting. She's going to, do an incredible job as she already has with 500 Startups. And also they announced their third investment out of their SoftBank Miami fund. And that is into 8 Sleep, which we've, chatted about often on this podcast. So that makes their third investment after QuickNote and Lumu. So yeah, it's exciting times, and we're excited to see the work that Anna will do there. She will be charged with kind of leading the SoftBank Miami initiative. So yeah, I think we're all familiar with Anna. We all know and love her. So we'll
Amazing.
get her on the podcast soon enough once she's
Yeah.
a few weeks in.
Anna's awesome. I don't think they could have made a better hire on that front. She's terrific. She comes with a lot of experience on the venture side at 500 startups, and big connection to Latin America. So she checks all the boxes. I think that's a rock star hire.
Yeah, very cool. I'm excited for her. I also want to see. I mean, they're making moves. I want to see how they deploy the rest of the capital. One thing we learned from Mayor Suarez, and we'll go into the interview in a second, or the conversation in a second. But they committed $100 million, but that's not necessarily the cap.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see them really get the ball rolling with another round of companies that they're investing in that are going to be growing here in Miami, that are going to really be hiring a lot of local talent and trying to solve some pretty cool problems. So to solve. So yeah, it'll be cool.
It was interesting that yesterday when I was listening to Marcelo at he was saying they're deploying $1 billion a week in capital.
Get out of here.
That's an insane, I can't wrap my head around how much money that is.
Wow.
But that's what you got to do when you've got 300 billion assets under management, right? And you've got to deploy it.
That's crazy. Do they have any reservations for sponsorships, particularly for podcast sponsorships, is what I'm wondering out of that fund?
I believe it's $100 million a week is their budget for that.
We'll take it. Marcelo, if you're listening, and we know you listen to the Miami Tech Pod, holler at us. Come on. We're open.
Okay. Well, we will now look. It's really neat to see such a powerhouse right here in our backyard, deploying capital and helping companies grow. Speaking of another powerhouse, we will jump into our conversation with Mayor Francis Suarez, who needs no introduction. And it was a really good conversation. I think we wanted to wait a little bit to let the buzz die down around Suarez and kind of jump in with a series of really entertaining questions that I think you all will enjoy. So sit back and hope you enjoy this interview. Mayor Francis Suarez, welcome to Miami Tech Pod.
Thanks, Cesar. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, you're someone who needs no introductions. Our listeners are well aware of how much of a champion you've been for Miami Tech. You've captured the attention of the world and all of that. But I'd love to get your perspective of what's next, right? What are the actual levers that you can pull as mayor? What are the policies that you can certainly influence on the city commission to make this the best city in America to build a tech company?
Well, I think there's a lot of things happening and are in the pipeline. Announcements. I just literally got off a meeting, a nice long meeting with Marcelo Claude to get an update on the Miami initiative, which was a $100 million fund. And what he basically said to me is, look, there is no limit to the fund. It's not $100 million and that's it. He said that we just came up with $100 million, but they have a $300 billion fund, right? So he says there's no limit to the number of companies or the amount of money that they'll fund. And they're already funding Miami-based companies with the $100 million initiative. So I think they've got some announcements that they're going to make in the future that are going to be exciting for our city. I continue to get text messages and calls and direct messages, DMs from people all over the country that want to come here and start up a company here, which is incredible. We're creating a ton of high-paying jobs that are benefiting this community. I mean, just with the DDA program alone, they've created 850 jobs in 1 year. That's $100,000 and above paying jobs. That's $85 million or more in economic activity just with one program, which, by the way, is a very, very small program. And we're continuing to become the capital of capital. We're continuing to attract both private equity, hedge fund, on the New York side, and then of course angel investors and VCs and funds like the Founders Fund and Blackstone Tech, and so it's just an exciting moment. We're looking at some things to incentivize crypto mining, which is something that I'm particularly excited about because we can do it in a much more clean way in terms of energy, which is a big issue with mining, its environmental impact. And I think the U.S. has unfortunately ceded too much ground right now on that issue, and we need to recapture some of the market share on mining, because it's only going to get more robust with blockchain technologies, with NFTs, and all the things that. So for me, I think I'm focused on what are the kinds of companies that the next generation of founders are going to build, and that's what I'm most focused on, creating incentives for those verticals to begin here in Miami, and that's what we're looking at.
So, Mayor, as I'm a local, as all of us on this podcast actually are, but one of the concerns a lot of the people in the local tech community, or a broader community too, have been like, how do we make sure that all the locals can capitalize on all this activity in the tech space and make this as inclusive and as forward thinking as possible? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy question to answer. I think you have to start with creating the kinds of educational opportunities that are going to allow our children to be successful in a modern day economy. So we just unveiled an initiative that we did with the Miami Foundation, with Access Miami, called Miami Connect, where 100,000 public school children, basically all children who are on free and reduced lunch in the public school system, get free broadband for 2 years. And that was thanks in part to a gift by Ken Griffin from Citadel, who's also moving to Miami. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of it. I think what you realize is there is a concerted effort, and there will be a concerted effort when these companies are coming here. They are hiring from Miami, or they're looking what they call Miami first, right? Mm-hmm. For example, I just left with SoftBank, and they hired a female executive director of 500 startups who's from Miami, or who's in Miami. So, I mean, I think that's a great indication to run some of their programming. So, I mean, I think there are a tremendous amount of opportunities. I think what's going to happen for the next generation of Miamians that are studying here is they're not going to have to leave to find jobs, which is something that unfortunately in my generation happened. And so that's what I see happening. And I think we have to continue to produce high-end talent, which we are. And then we're lucky to also have companies that are upskilling and that have not forgotten about people who maybe are not in the technological space right now, but would like to be, because they'd like to have a high-paying job. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something where you see WinCode that was just bought out, having a much bigger equity partner and much bigger ability to scale. And I think that's just going to bode well for the future of opportunity in our city.
I think that was a great point, because my next point was going to be, how do we attract talent? But I think one of the things that the locals probably aren't necessarily always aware of is that these companies moving here aren't purely hiring programmers. They're hiring every other role in the company, because you don't run a company just on programmers. Absolutely. And I think that's something that's a key messaging that we're going to, as a community, have to figure out. How do we make sure that everyone is aware that this isn't a rising tide just for a few boats? This is a rising tide for all boats, and all the folks in town can benefit from this, right? Because the more money that comes in, the more money is spent locally, and the local GDP is going to go hopefully through the roof, right? Yeah,
and I've never been a big believer, and I just want to be honest about this, because I think we need to be transparent in things. I've never been a big believer that government is really the entity that can solve all these problems, right? Like, I wish I could tell you, Brian, I had a magic wand. I could say, okay, I'm going to fix the tech equity issue, and I'm going to fix this issue. It's not that simple.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I agree.
What I'm trying to do is create the conditions, right, for companies to come, right, leaving places where they're not being well treated and where they're being taxed to death, and allow them to thrive here. What that creates ultimately, hopefully, will be opportunity for women founders, will be opportunities for minority, people in the minority community, will be opportunities for more Miamians. That's the hope. It's not a mandate. I wish I could tell a company, listen, you come here, you have to hire 50% of your workforce has to be people that were born in Miami. By the way, that born in Miami, I'm one of the few people that was actually born in Miami. It's an interesting sort of a misconception.
All 5 of us were born in Miami.
Okay,
so,
Mayor,
that's super rare. Yeah,
this is the Miami Tech Pod.
Very rare, because I think I saw statistics somewhere 60 to 70% of Miamians are not born in Miami. So it's just part of who we are. It's part of our identity as a city. We're a city that people came from other parts of the world to be in. My parents weren't born in Miami. I'm the first mayor of Miami born in Miami in 125 years. So that narrative is also changing. But I think a lot of narratives are changing with this moment. And it's exciting because I do think the community wants to hold these companies accountable. At the same time, I feel like the community needs to be patient to some extent and realize that this is an integration process. This is not going to happen overnight. You know what I mean? But there is an intentionality, I will say, to hire Miami first. And hopefully that's something that maybe we can create a hashtag called Miami First.
I love that. Miami First. We got to make that a thing. Goes on the sleeve maybe of the t-shirts, right?
There you go.
So Mayor, first of all, thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the work you're doing for the city. These past few months have been nuts, I'm sure, for you. And it's probably like something out of a dream.
It is.
On that note, I'm wondering, with all the excitement, there's probably been so many moments when you're interacting with different people, Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and all these folks and David Beckham. Give us one or two like pinch me moments that you're like, am I dreaming right now? Like, is this real? Is this really happening? Like, what are some that really stick out for you?
There have been so many of those moments, pinch me moments. I think driving through the tunnels in Las Vegas, seeing that that's a real project, that this is something that can be done, that can really revolutionize macro mobility to differentiate it from micro mobility. I think, talking on the phone with Elon Musk and trying to control my pulse when I realized that I'm talking to the richest person on the planet, potentially, to going to Qatar and having the Emir say, "My mayor," and realizing that in Qatar, which is on the other side of the planet, 13 hours away, 15 hours away coming back, that people know who I am over there, and that, so, I mean, I think those have been sort of pinch me moments. But even like the moment when Marcelo decided to, announce the Miami initiative, right? The $100 million Miami initiative, was like, wow, this is actually something that is really having an effect, an impact, this campaign. I think my tweets, seeing some of my tweets get 2 million, 3 million impressions, 6 million views. It's just like, wow, being talked about. And there's a lot of pinch me moments, a lot. I mean, if you would have told me on December 3rd, the day before the tweet, that all of these things would have happened in a few months, I would have said, there's no way that's possible. That's like not even remotely, conceivable.
I love that. And a follow-up question to that, because I'm married, I have 3 kids, and I want to understand the dynamic that you and your wife have in this moment where you're working nonstop, and she's like, "Right, my husband's going to Qatar and going to Elon Musk." What was the conversation like? Did you say, "Listen, I have to do this. This is the moment for Miami where I'm going to have to put in the hours"? I just want to get some insight because I need tips on how to do that with work-life balance in my own home.
I'll tell you a couple of things. The first thing is she's been amazing, and frankly, without her support, none of this would be possible. But what I've done, I've made some adjustments, and I have. And what I've done is I've kind of carved out the morning time to be family time. So I've never used to be the dad that would drive their kids to school. So now I drive my son to school 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm kind of a cheapo, right? But I ended up hiring a trainer to train my wife and I. So my wife and I train, work out together, which we never did. And I've been married for 14 years. It's the first time in our life. My wife's never worked out. So, I mean, she looks great, but she's just never been like a workout. I'm a workout freak. But we actually work out 3 days a week together, which is really, really cool and a great experience. And we're religious about it. Like, somebody could tell me, I want to meet Elon Musk and say, I want to call him at night. No, I'm working out at that time. He's got to call me at 10:30. You know what I mean? Like we're really, really, we protect that time, because sometimes it's the only time that I have with my family, from the morning until like 10 a.m. And so like today I was with a reporter talking to him, and he's like, he's like, do you have a breakfast that we can skip? I'm like, I don't do breakfasts anymore. My breakfast time is with my family. Like I'm that time is inviolate, and then the day will take you, right? And so, yesterday I worked until, my last appointment was at 9 p.m. Today, my last appointment is at 9. I'm on a Clubhouse chat at 9 p.m. So, I mean, I'm working till, I literally hit the couch yesterday when the NCAA game was on, and I almost couldn't get up. My wife's like, baby, you need to get up. And I'm like, I just can't get up. I can't move. I'm like, but the next day I worked out, and then do the routine over again. So that would be my recommendation.
I love that. Great tips. So I know we have a little bit of time left. Some rapid fire questions. Some of them more Miami based. But first, if you weren't the mayor or a lawyer, what would you want to be?
I'd want to be a owner of a tech company.
He wants to be on the
well-suited.
cap table somewhere. He wants
Yeah.
he wants those options.
Absolutely.
Smart. I think you do well. Favorite Cuban dish?
My favorite Cuban dish is I like. Oh man, why is this hard for me right now? I like arroz y frijoles negro. I like ropa vieja is great. So those are two good ones there.
Okay. What's your favorite Miami saying or dicho, as we'd say?
Dale.
Dale.
I think said that the other day too. They asked. Dale.
Okay. ¿El rey de las fritas o el mango de las
El rey de
fritas?
las fritas. El rey de las fritas. 100%.
Easy, hands down.
That was a no-brainer. That's on 20th and Flagler. In fact, I had one just a couple of weeks. You can't have them too often. You gotta have
Absolutely.
Space them out.
They're so good that they're kind of like repugnant, like dulce de leche. When it's so good, that's like it's too good, So you have to have them like spaced out.
I imagine your trainer wants you to space them out too.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure.
And favorite Cuban bakery in Miami?
My Cuban bakery is Brazo Fuerte on 32nd Avenue and 16th Street Southwest. I used to live in Coral Gate, which is the neighborhood right across the street. And I grew up going to that bakery, so I love that bakery. It's the best.
It's funny you mentioned that, because the person I was crowdsourcing some of these questions, and Wilfredo, founder of the lab, he gave me that question, and he said if you didn't give that answer, then you guys were gonna have problems, because that's his favorite.
The best. They have the best croquetas. They have the best, pastelitos de carne, pastelito de guayaba. They're the best.
Mayor, here's the bonus, because our listeners are wondering. These are the bonus questions for sure. So, you're a natural born citizen of the United States of America, correct?
This is I don't know where this question's going, but yes, I am a natural born citizen.
And are you at least 35 years old?
I am 43.
And
that's not like the qualifications for a particular office.
Maybe. Have you been a resident of the United States for 14 years?
I have.
So you running or what?
I'm running for re-election. Yes, there's no doubt. I'm running for re-election, and then if I'm re-elected, hopefully, I'll have the privilege of being the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors beginning in January. So that's a great thing for our community, to be the president of all the mayors in the nation, selected by my peers, and that's something that I think is really exciting for our generation too, because I think what's happening here is. And if you go to Qatar, and I would highly recommend it to all of you, you'll see that in Qatar, the entire apparatus of government is people in our age demographic, which is incredible, because they're controlling an enormous amount of wealth. But it's brilliant, because we're thinking in the next 10, 15, 20 years, right? There's going to become a point where there's going to be people that are going to replace us, right? And they're going to be thinking, and we have to have enough self-confidence. And this is important. I really want to say this, and I want you guys to hear this. This is important. There's going to come a moment where it's time for us to step aside. And it's time for us to allow the next generation of innovators and thinkers and dreamers to step up. And that's important that it happens in a society. And I think it's really great what I see about Miami. And I think one of the reasons why we're doing really well, we're going to continue to do well, it's not just because they have a young mayor, but it's because all of you guys, right? We're in the same age demographic. We're all coming together to create, to maximize this opportunity. And if you look at Qatar, it's the same thing. You have a bunch of, the Qatar Investment Authority, the free trade zone, everything up there. It's all, relatively young people who are managing probably billions and billions of hundreds of billions of dollars. And that's why they keep innovating, and they're constantly cutting edge.
That's a really good segment, and I'd love to end here, because I know you're busy and you have time, and your time is valuable here. But I'm not going to single out any city in Miami-Dade County at all, but we've seen that, for the most part, the average age of elected officials, of people in elected office, is a little older, right? And we've seen that different perspective when a younger person in our community, takes that plunge and runs for office. And oftentimes they bring that perspective into governing and all of that. I mean, how do you encourage some of the people that could be operators right now that are building companies that, have never really thought about government because it's just not their lane at all? It's not something that, they're passionate about, providing value in other ways. First of all, do you encourage them to actually get involved and run for office, or do you think that they can provide more value in the private sector? Right. I think that's kind of more the thing that's on my mind these days.
No, I totally encourage them. I think my generation, and I'm a little bit older than some of you guys, my generation has sort of dropped the ball. And everybody's decided they want to go make money, which is great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. But the government is big business too. You know what I mean? Our government's $1 billion company. I'm running $1 billion company with 4,500 employees and 4 labor unions. If you ever want to get on the job training for running a company, get in government. I mean, you'll be frustrated. You'll have to learn how to motivate people. You have to learn how to be inspirational. You certainly have to be clean, because if you're not, somebody's going to expose it. You know what I mean? Everyone's just waiting to make you look bad. So, it's an incredibly challenging but rewarding endeavor. And the one thing you get to do in government, which you don't get to do in a lot of other companies, you get to help people. And you get to do it in a much more comprehensive and broad fashion. And if you're running a company, maybe you do it in a particular vertical that you're in. But you get to do this in a wide spectrum of issues, and you get to help a lot of people, and that's incredibly satisfying. So there's a high degree of satisfaction. There's certainly a lot of challenges, and look, there's frustrations as well, which are also good, because they teach you how to problem solve, and they teach you how to adapt. And frankly, you develop thick skin. So it's kind of hard at this point when somebody criticizes me. It's like, okay, well, I mean, it's the norm. So, you just kind of run with it, and you have to, it helps you create a certain level of self-confidence. That's important, right? You need to have confidence in your decision-making. You need to have confidence in who you are, because people are going to come at you and criticize you and poke fun at you and try to pick at your vulnerabilities all the time. And, if you're not, and it's a process, by the way. I'm a different person than I was 11 years ago. You know what I mean? I'm 11 years ago, I was very shy when I started. In the sense of, like, I didn't want to speak out on things. I was very, very cautious about what I said, and I've learned to be just more authentic, and it's a process. It's not something that happens overnight. At least it didn't happen for me overnight. And you're always learning throughout the process about who you are, and rediscovering yourself, and getting stronger and better at everything that you need to survive in an environment like this.
Well said. Mayor, thank you so much for joining the Miami Tech Pod. This was a blast. It went by very fast. So feel free to jump on in future episodes. This is your home. So whenever you want, we'd love to continue the conversation and keep following your moves, and good luck this election season.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thanks, Mayor.
All right, that wraps up episode 14 of the Miami Tech Pod. We want to once again thank Mayor Suarez for the pod. And we have a lot of exciting things coming up in future episodes. So make sure that you are following us on Twitter at Miami Tech Pod, and like and subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. And we will see you next week.